And it's with this approach that Canada is forging a new strategic partnership with China.
Tariffs by Trump, tariffs by USA.
What we do now is Canada, how we position ourselves in the world.
Canada and China trade deal.
And I am very pleased to announce that we have made significant progress in a number of key areas.
Trump's tariff-driven disruption of the global order. Hello everyone, welcome back to Namma Laex Bangalore presents current issue of the day. In today's episode, we will discuss Canada and China trade deal. So, USA's most trusted ally, Canada, is going for a trade deal with USA's current enemy, that is China. So, why is this so significant and why is this important for UPSC aspirants to read and also very important for interview going students? We will discuss what is this deal about and why countries are moving away from USA. So, obviously, the answer lies with Trump's Make America Great Again policies, where he wants to portray America and wants to make America great for Americans. So most of his policies are protectionist in nature and many of the countries are feeling the burnt of this. As a result, the countries are going for alternative measures. So Canada-China rapprochement amid Trump-era tariff policies. So Trump has used the tariff to his advantage and disadvantage of many countries, and one of the country which was under the burnt of Trump's trade tariffs or trade policies was Canada, its immediate neighbor Canada. So Canada was overly dependent on USA previously. So as a result, because of tariffs by Trump, tariffs by USA, Canada is trying to move away from USA and Canada is trying to move away from USA and towards America's enemies such as China. So what is this? We'll discuss what is the important implications of this particular move. This particular move is mainly driven by Trump's tariff-driven disruption of the global order. Trump's tariff-driven disruption of the global order. The trade and tariff policies pursued by the Donald Trump have fundamentally altered the geopolitics and altered the global economic environment, which has introduced unprecedented unpredictability into international commerce, be it India, be it Russia, be it China, be it Canada, be it Europe. All the countries are facing the brunt of Trump's tariff and trade policies. Frequent and unilateral tariff actions have eroded trust even amongst the American closest allies, which is compelling these nations to search for alternatives away from USA. In that aspect, this disruption has catalyzed a strategic shift. What is the shift? That is, countries are actively searching for an alternative economic partners and pursuing diversification strategies. What does this mean? It basically means reducing the dependence on USA to insulate themselves from sudden policy shifts emanating from the Washington and emanating basically from Trump's. So, core insight here is US-centric rule-based predictability has weakened significantly, pushing countries towards a pragmatic diversification and issue-based partnerships rather than rigid ideological alignment. So we'll discuss what is this uncertainty and here. So Canada's strategic vulnerability and the quest for diversification. Why is Canada moving towards this? Why is Canada moving towards China? Previously, Canada was also a staunch opponent of China. Canada was one of the main criticizers of China, but now Canada is moving towards China. Why? Because of the structural over dependence on whom? Dependence on USA. 75% of its goods are exported to USA. So Canada is over dependent on USA for its goods and creating severe vulnerability to USA's trade disruptions and policy volatility. So when Trump started playing with tariffs, and because of these tariffs, most of the Canadian goods were not able to be exported to USA at the competitive prices, which hurt their economy very much, and then exposed weaknesses. That is, tariff shocks under the Trump administration dramatically exposed the structural weakness, placing significant pressure on Canada's export-dependent economy. And finally, strategic imperatives. That is, when its economy is under sustained pressure, Canada urgently sought trade diversification, strategic autonomy in foreign policy, and also reduced dependence on single economic partner. This is laying the groundwork for renewed engagement with China. So three objectives will be addressed through this China-Canada deal. What are the three objectives? First is trade diversification. Second is strategic autonomy in foreign policy. And the third is reduced dependence on single economic partner. So all these objectives will be achieved with one single trade deal with China. So this is actually being dubbed as Mark Carney's technocratic realism. Who is this Mark Carney? Mark Carney is none other than the Prime Minister of Canada at the moment. So Mark Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada, who was previously head of Canadian Bank as well as Bank of England. So he knows a bit about economics, and now he is heading the Canadian country. So Canada's deal with China signals it's a serious shift from USA. Okay, so this is it. And what is his ideology? His ideology is mainly about he is a pivotal factor in Canada's strategic shift leadership of Mark Carney, and he represents a fundamental different approach from the traditional ideological politicians. His idea is the orientation means economic rationality is prioritized over the automatic ideological alignment with the Western Bloc politics. Previously, all the Western countries aligned with each other not because of their economy or politics, but because of their ideological similarity. So most of the West followed capitalist ideology, democratic ideology. So they thought this ideological alignment will help in rest of the sectors as well, such as economy, politics, etc. But now they are understanding just because you have similar ideologies doesn't mean economy is going to prosper. So they are moving away from ideological alignment towards economic rationality. That is why Mark Carney, under the leadership of Mark Carney, who was the governor of both Bank of Canada as well as Bank of England, are moving towards China, are moving towards diversification. What is this? The disorientation or deterioration of China relations and the reset of China-Canada relations. So just 6 years back, that is around 2018, there was a sharp deterioration between China and Canada relations. No one would have thought after in 2026 these countries are going to have a trade deal. No one would have thought because of their deterioration in 2018. The relations were collapsed following the Canada's arrest of a Chinese technology executive, triggering Chinese retaliations through detention of Canadian citizens and trade restrictions. So this was mainly driven by the USA policies, which resulted in Canada aligning with USA as well. In 2024, alignment with the USA. So Canada imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles in alignment with American policy, provoking Chinese counter tariffs on Canadian agriculture goods as well as exports. So see, just in 2024, the countries were at each other's throat, but now because of the domestic pressure, the trade barriers have severely hurt the Canadian farmers and the exporters. This created intense domestic political pressure for diplomatic repair and the economic relief. So what happened here is Canada thought that we have to go back to our enemy, that is China. So in 2025, they are resetting the imperative. That is, mounting economic losses and the stakeholder demands forced Canada to actively seek a comprehensive trade deal and diplomatic and trade reset with China. Who are the stakeholders? Obviously, the stakeholders are the agricultural exports and the mounting economic losses. By whom? By one, because of the Chinese tariffs, because Canada put 100% tariff on the Chinese goods, Chinese electric vehicles. China decided to put tariffs on them. So it hurt Canadian economy. Also, the Trump tariffs have hurt Canadian exports as well. So both together hurt the Canadian exports, but they thought that we can reason with China, but we cannot reason with Trump. So they decided to go for lesser evil of the two, that is China. Next, key components of this trade deal. So what are the key components of this trade deal? First is Canadian concessions. So Canada has resulted in a removal of Canada has said removal of 100% tariff on the Chinese electric goods and entry of approximately 49,000 electric vehicles annually at a reduced 6% tariff rate, and then provisions for phased expansion of EV imports in the future negotiations. So China will get concessions for the electric vehicles supply, and what will Canada get? The Chinese concessions are the Canada is going to get a dramatic reduction of tariffs on the Canadian agricultural products. So for example, canola, there was tariff of 85%, now it has been reduced to 15%. And the removal of trade barriers on lobster, crab, peas and other farm commodities. So basically Canadian farmers are going to be happy because now they will have a competitive price and a competitive market to sell to. And finally, improved market access for the Canadian exporters. So it is proving to be a win-win situation for both the countries. And finally, broader cooperation framework. This is not only about economic, but also it is going to be a broader cooperation among enhanced cooperation and collaboration in energy, forestry and tourism sectors, and also joint climate and sustainability dialogue initiatives, expanded people-to-people exchanges and cultural programs. So these are all going to be covered under this trade deal. So it is not merely a trade deal, but it is a more of a comprehensive deal. What else? So why Chinese electric vehicles are playing such a big role? Because China's electric vehicles and dominance and the strategic leverage. Why? There is a cost advantage. How much is the cost advantage? Chinese electric vehicles are approximately 30 to 40% cheaper than the Western alternatives, such as Tesla, such as like European companies, etc., etc. Whereas Chinese companies such as BYD, etc., are 30% cheaper than the Western alternatives. Obviously, people are going to buy more Chinese vehicles. So, providing significant consumer benefits. And also, China is the #1 in the global leadership of electric vehicles. China is the world's largest EV producer and exporter, with the companies like BYD outperforming many Western companies, even outperforming Tesla in many aspects. Next is 40K market access, that is 49,000 vehicles every year will be given access to Canadian market now. Annual vehicles entering the Canadian market under the new agreement. So this is going to be a big boost for Chinese electric vehicles firms. Next, the new world order, the controversy and the multipolarity. The question about controversy and the multipolarity. This new world order was coined by Mark Carney. That is, the cooperation marks the beginning of new world order. So it is basically like rubbing salt on the wounds of whom? On wounds of Trump. So Trump said, Canada, you are my allies, you are nothing without us. So Canada said that if we are not nothing without you, then okay, we are nothing without you. So we'll find some alternatives who will think of as partners rather than just a component. So that partner for them is China. Why did they say this? Why did Carney says that this is the start of new world order? Because of the declining USA unipolarity. That is erosion of American-led global governance structures, because China, Russia, European Union, and to an extent India is also playing a role in bringing this multipolarity. And second is rise of multipolarity, that is emergence of multiple centers of economic and political power. In economic it is China, and political again it is China, and in economic we can consider India and European Union as well. And issue based partnerships, the partnerships of the current time are no longer based on the ideology, but rather based on the issue. So flexible alliances replacing the rigid ideological blocks. Next is USA strategic anxiety and the implications for North America. So obviously its closest ally is now choosing its worst enemy. So what should be the way forward, and why is USA worried here? One is indirect market access, that is Chinese electric vehicles may get indirect access to broader North American markets through Canada circumventing the US trade barriers. This is what was happening with respect to RCEP and India as well. That is why India decided not to join RCEP, because without the strict rules of origins, China could have easily exported its goods through RCEP members to India. But now there is a threat of indirect expansion or indirect export of Chinese electric vehicles from Canada through Canada to USA. Next is competitive pressures. That is, American EV manufacturers like Tesla face intensified competition from the cost-effective Chinese alternatives in Canada. Which was previously the stronghold of US markets. Next is strategic technology concerns. That is, electric vehicles are viewed as strategic technologies involving the data security, not merely consumer products. Finally, weakened collective pressure. That is, Canada's move undermines coordinated Western strategy to contain China's technological and economic expansion. Okay, so this is why USA is also worried. Now, what lessons can India learn from this? Okay, what lessons can India learn from this to maintain the strategic fragmentation? One is economic realities. Focus should be on economic realities. That is, India needs what? It needs affordability, technology access, and sustained growth. Such as a result, it is going to result in Chinese dominance in EV components, and batteries remain unavoidable. So India has to focus more on affordability and technology access. Next is calibrated engagement. That is, post-Galwan restrictions are gradually softening, and Make in India still requires selective imports and strategic foreign investment. So we are saying that India could make an ally out of China if USA under Trump carries this uncertainty over the prolonged period, then it is going to hurt India's economy. So India can forgive and forego beyond these ideological differences, beyond these border incursions, beyond these disputes, can find an ally out of China only with respect to economy. That is how Japan and China's relations have grew over the period of time. Both are staunch opponents, both are staunch enemies, both historically and in current terms as well. But they are one of the largest markets, largest economic traders between each other. So India can also exploit this opportunity with China. Finally, maintaining the strategic autonomy. That is, true strategic autonomy means calibrated, interest-based engagement rather than ideological isolation or rigid bloc politics. So India is already doing well with respect to strategic autonomy, and it has to ramp up more of these things. So the bottom line here is, Canada's China pivot is not merely bilateral trade story. It reflects a declining US leverage or allies' economic compulsions reshaping the geopolitics and the global transition towards multipolar flexible order. And India should learn from this and focus more on bringing strategic autonomy and exploring opportunities for bringing more allies. So this is this particular video. If you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on it, and also share with your friends. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.